This is a really quick response to my buddy Confederate Florida. Um, as you know, and I think I've talked to you before about one of my interests and one of the reasons that I also was intrigued to move back to Savannah is to have access to both historical records and everything that's here. Um, you sent me a note on if the states were ever sovereign nations. Now, if you go back to, and I had covered this a little bit on some of my American history documents on the other channel, which I will be moving over here shortly. Um, the states themselves were never actually sovereign nations. Now you have to listen to this whole thing. Initially, were never actually sovereign nations. Now, what it was is we were colonies of Great Britain. Now, to go get a real general fast overview of how this was set up is we were originally colonies set up under governorship, basically as nothing more than corporations, trade partners, if you will. We supplied substances and textiles and different things to be used over in Great Britain or to trade with to get, more goods and services. Now, as time went on, and the reason that we led up to the revolution, again, this is in a real tight little nutshell, what had happened up to the revolution was Parliament started giving less and less say to the colonists. Now the colonists adored the king. They loved England. They were proud citizens of England. They were proud British citizens. They wanted nothing more than to simply have a little more say in what went on in their lives and what to say as far as paying taxes went. Now Parliament at the time ignored them. Although there was a bit of a treaty for a while, eventually the power swung back to the other side and Parliament was ignored. They went ahead and ignored the colonists. Now, this happened over a period of probably between 30 and 50 years, where the colonists tried very, 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 very hard to work within a system. And after a while, they eventually kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and gone into a corner. The Parliament and the King eventually sent forces over stateside to quell the uprisings, and this more infuriated the colonists. They started setting up ragtag militias. The Boston Tea Party originally, again, it was no taxation without representation. Again, all of this is in full in the American history things. So anyway, what led to the initial revolution was after years and years and years and years of trying to work within the system, they just said that that's enough, and we love our country, and we know it's death if we go against it, and the chances of winning are slim to none. But we have to fight for our rights. They went ahead and outlined their statements of grievances, which was the Declaration of Independence, where they basically listed, why this wasn't working for them anymore. A few years later, in I think it was 1779, was when the Constitution was written, when we officially declared ourselves as our own country. I think the revolution didn't actually end until shortly after that. Again, I'm not good with dates off the top of my head, so it's in the other texts, or I believe I'm about halfway through it. I'll continue updating those later on this channel. Okay, so then we became United States. So the colonies broke off into their own states, more or less, territory type system where we declared ourselves as a whole, the 13, as one country. But it was under a contract, in the Constitution was our contract that said, we will do, you will provide us XYZ, and we will agree, to allow you to do very general, dispute between states, and you promise that you'll protect our common border. And if you want, basically, they said, well, you can do trade disputes between two states, and you have to protect our common border. That's what the United States was. That's what the alliance between the states was. Now, the states themselves, in a sense, were sovereign entities, but they were sovereign entities under a whole. So they were more like board members. Now, fast forward a bit to where we get to the Civil War. Now, the federal government, and this was always a big thing between states and federal rights. Now, the federal government started to take too, or at least I should say the North started to take too much power. So what actually happened that led up to the Civil War was the North realized that they were unsustainable with the way in the manner which they were growing. They started tariffing and overtaxing the South for their import-export taxes because the North was importing more and the South was exporting more. So they adjusted how their tariffs worked, which was killing the Southern states. Now the Southern states seeing this as an unfair advantage, which the way the North was working. Now remember, the Civil War didn't actually have anything to do with slavery. To be dead honest with you, it really didn't. It was a trade dispute. So the southern states, noticing that there was unfair tariffs being laid in to their behalf from the North, too much power being usurped, the North was trying to basically go for a power grab. Keep in mind, the North still had slavery also, which is why I say it wasn't over slavery. It was over trade and power grabs. So anyway, the South said, you've dishonored your contract. You broke your contract. They then started breaking off bit by bit, declared their sovereignty. The South was officially its own country for a while until the North realized that this was killing them on trade because they weren't able to get the tax money from the South that they were getting through the tariffs through the South's exports because the South was self-sufficient. Now, the South being self-sufficient, then the North decided that, oh, we need to get this land back because we can't afford to keep funding our own projects if the South is no longer part of the United States. Well, the thing was, the Confederacy by that time was already ceded from the Union, had already ceded, they'd already made their own country. So quite literally, and this is why it was the War of Northern Aggression, that's why down here in Georgia and in the South, they refer to it as the War of Northern Aggression. At that time, they were no longer members of the United States. They had completely succeeded, they had completely ceded, they were cut off, they were their own country. Now, the easy proof of this goes right back to the Constitution, where I think it's Article 2. Again, excuse me, I have no notes in front of me. I'm doing this on top of my head, where it says that no state may break off from another state and join the Union. Basically, you cannot form a state out of a current state and join the Union. Now, this is where West Virginia comes in. Virginia had ceded from the North. Virginia was no longer part of the United States, but a few counties in the upper northwest corner of Virginia decided that they wanted to be with the Union, that they had more in common with the northern states. They wanted to be up there. So Congress granted them status as West Virginia, a new state. This could only be done legally and constitutionally if Virginia was no longer part of the United States. All right, that's my, very, very simple black and white right there. The South was already its own thing, right? Anyway, that's a preview of what's to come, and I'll cover more later.